a couple of things here, JP. I think there's a big difference between ready to start and ready to be a high-level standout quarterback in the NFL. And I think folks in Chicago have to understand the bridge that must be crossed to get from point A to point B. I think Justin Fields is plenty ready to start football games and not be overwhelmed. Is he ready to be a star every week? I don't think so. And so there's going to be some bumps in the road. You called this a magic carpet ride before we came on the air. Well, that magic carpet ride is going to experience some turbulence in the early going. And so Bears fans and the coaching staff is going to have to be ready for that turbulence and ready to endure it. As for how Fields played in the second half, mostly against the Bengals last week, it wasn't good enough. He only had 83 yards and 4 first downs after halftime last week, despite the defense playing as well as it's played in a long time. They had 4 takeaways. 3 of those gave the ball to the offense on the Bengals side of midfield. The Bears offense only turned that into 6 points. That's not good enough. And so they're going to have to be better. Fields is going to have to be better, but the process begins Sunday in Cleveland.
Do you think that Matt Nagy and his offensive staff are going to modify the game plan for Justin Fields and maybe kind of find things that suit him well and that kind of fit his skill set on the football field?
Yeah, you hope that early in the week they got their heads together and said, hey, what are Justin's gifts and how can we bring them out on a more regular basis? That means a guy that throws the ball well deep with accuracy, let him throw the ball deep with accuracy every once in a while. It means getting him outside the pocket, using that elite speed that he has, making sure you go back to your library from training camp in the preseason and understand what concepts and plays within the playbook are things that he's comfortable with. You want him to be playing fast and doing minimal thinking if you can. And that's a challenge for a coaching staff with a rookie quarterback. You want to do so much more, but you have to understand that the training wheels have to be on to some extent. And so they've got to find a good balance of doing enough to keep the Browns defense honest, but not so much that it overwhelms Justin Fields.
You know, one thing that can definitely help out a rookie quarterback is a good defense. And what do you think changed for Sean Desai's defense from week 1 to week 2?
Look, I think if you want to start with what they talked about internally, it was the energy, right? Alec Ogletree came out of that Rams game and said it was just sort of jarring that there was a lack of energy from the defense. Well, what creates energy? Big plays create energy. And so they got after the passer in the first half last week. You had the Robert Quinn sack in which Khalil Mack set it up, and all of a sudden that momentum started coming. And then when the takeaway faucet came on in the second half, it couldn't be turned off. 4 consecutive possessions where they took the ball away. Roquan Smith playing like one of the best defensive players, not just linebackers in this league, one of the best defensive players in this league. When you get your stars to play like stars, you see the results. Mack, Roquan, Eddie Jackson, they all had an impact on that game. We talked about last week that they had to have an impact. They did. You saw the results. It helped the Bears get their first win of the season.
Well, the Browns, so they're through their rebuilding stage. They're a playoff caliber team. Yeah. How good is this Brown squad?
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, we used to think that a trip to Cleveland was an easy victory, right? You pocketed the W, you got back on the plane, and you looked at your next opponent. This Browns team is really, really good. They played very well in week 1 against the Chiefs, obviously come back and get a win this past week. They've got a defense that's really fast. You know that Myles Garrett is going to have to be accounted for on that side of the ball. And then they're going to run the ball with some commitment, right? You see the backfield weapons that they have, starting with Nick Chubb, mixing in Kareem Hunt here and there. They've got guys offensively that can take some pressure off of Baker Mayfield. And now all of a sudden you've got a team that, as you mentioned, in Cleveland is a playoff caliber team that is going to test the Bears. They're going to test the young quarterback in Justin Fields, and they're going to make it really difficult for the Bears to get a W.
All right, I ask you every single week how you think this is going to play itself out. Can the Bears get the dub on Sunday?
It seems like a big ask on the road with Justin Fields making his first NFL start. Obviously, he's going to have to play close to error-free, which for a rookie quarterback is not easy. And so I don't see them pulling the upset off. Then obviously they come home the next week and they've got a friendly defense in the Lions to play there. I think everyone who looked at the schedule early on said this team was going to be 2-2 after the first 4. And then, JP, look at the next 6, because that's where the real torture chamber begins. You know, you start with the game against the Raiders in Vegas, the Packers, the Buccaneers, the 49ers, the Steelers, the Ravens. That's a 6-game stretch that's going to tell us a lot about whether this football team has any playoff hopes or whether they're just going to be sort of sorting through a lengthy losing streak and trying not to point fingers again. The road gets really bumpy really quickly. And so these next 2 weeks for Fields, the offense, and the entire team are important towards generating momentum and some positive energy.